Hey, everybody. Hey, Unseen. Looks like we may have one or two other people in here. Um, I was almost late for my stream again. um, so I do apologize. But welcome, everybody, to the official second episode of Seductive Poison the Resurgence. Even though Steve doesn't like that name, he wanted me to use something different. I don't know why. Just for some odd reason, he didn't like Resurgence. So I hope you guys like it because, I mean, hell, he's not even watching me do these things. So, uh, and I do apologize for, hey, Blissful, I do apologize for not being on the last two nights. Oh, thank you, Unseen. That's basically the intro for just the Seductive Poison, the Resurgence podcast I'm doing. I use the regular one, the one that y'all usually see when I do regular live streams for those, but then I have this other one for the Seductive Poison thing. So you love it, Blissful. And my hair is not straightened right now. I didn't have time to straighten it yet, but I know some of you gals out there like seeing it kind of kinky curly like this, a little wild and all of that. So there you go. I also have, hey, Chris. Um, I also got something I want to show you guys. Now, I know I've showed you the new jacket that eventually I will be wearing, more than likely on all my streams. Um, thanks, Blissful. But I've added, well, I had the I Love Horror Movies button on it, but I don't know, something about this thing is so loose, it fell off when I was doing something else. So, I have added a patch to it, one patch. Um, Let me just grab it real quick. And you guys can hopefully, now, trying to get it where you can see that. Maybe if I sit down, it'll be better. Well, this ain't quite working out like I wanted it to. There we go. And yes, I did want it kind of slanted that way before anybody asked. Because I just think it looks, it doesn't look just like a run of the mill patch. Wanted to give it a little personality and all that stuff. So you can see this is a little bit different in the shape than the one on my hat. And the font, I think, is a little bit different and it's pink. So I did add that today. Um, but I'm still waiting for the big patch that goes on the back, the 10 by 10 patch. It should be here later on in the month. And I had forgotten that I had got these other patches a while back. So I think I'm eventually going to be sewing this patch onto the jacket somewhere. So, but I do have some more. When I was doing the hat, I got several different patches and I didn't know which ones I would be using for what. There's that one. There's Ash. And then there's this one as well. So, but probably this, more than likely, this is going to be the one I put on the jacket. And then I'll save these other patches. I may be able to use them for something else in the future. So, guess I better try to get these back in here. Thank you, Chris. You say very cool stuff. Well, I think Steve thinks I'm crazy. So he said, he asked me tonight, because I got the name tag patch in this evening, and I told him that I was gonna. He said, "Are you gonna iron that on?" I said, "No, I'm gonna sew it on there." Um, and he said, "Well," he said, "Are you gonna wear that jacket out anywhere?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm pretty much gonna use it for my streams because I figured he did, he gets embarrassed very easily and doesn't like me to wear horror shirts out and all that. So I try to, only wear the horror shirts when we go to horror conventions or something like that, so as not to embarrass him." Um, and he said, "So you're just going to wear that in the house?" I said, "Well, Steve, I would wear it out somewhere, but when it gets fall and the weather's cooler out there, I ain't going to wear it outside in 80, 90-degree weather or more." Um, and I, he said, "Well, what if I said I didn't mind? Would you wear it out?" I said, "Well, hell yeah, I'd wear it out." And he said, "Okay." So I guess this fall, when the weather gets cooler, I'll be actually advertising myself out in public when we go to Walmart or go to a restaurant or whatever. Um, oh, well, thank you, Bliss. Will you say I love the fact that you're designing it? Yeah, my mom and some other people's moms or grandparents or something like that. I have to take the hat off, guys. So sorry. Um, may have said this too, but my mom always said, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So I think of it as that way. If I want something designed exactly the way I want it, then it's better to, get all the pieces together. I sound like that little kid on Pieces putting the puzzle together. But anyway, get all the pieces together and, just start, piecemealing it until you get it the way you like it. That's the way I did with the hat. Of course, it's been so damn hot back here that it's hard for me to wear my hat, in which I hate that. I would love to be able to wear my hat all the time like I used to. Um, Chris, you say very cool stuff. You say, "I'm the crazy one, LOL. My apartment looks like a video storage facility." Well, I've seen your apartment, Chris, when you've been on live on the stream with me and stuff. I don't think it looks bad. Hey, John, it's good to see you in here. In fact, it is, John. I am going to be talking about Bad Ronald tonight. Listen says, "Dana, I'll send you pink dye to put in the shower head just for Steve." Uh, so anyway, in case you weren't sure what I was going to be talking about on tonight's episode, I'm going to be talking about made for TV horror from the 1970s. And I'm thinking about doing one for the 1980s as well. Steve kind of rolled his eyes when I said 1980s, but what I did was I went to Steve and I said, "What would you like to see somebody do a live stream or a podcast on? Uh, that you haven't really seen somebody do one on?" He said, "Well, what about made for television horror movies from the 1970s?" I was like, "Gee, yeah." So you can thank Steve for coming up with that idea. And then I'm just going to kind of expand on that and carry it over into the 80s. Because, in my opinion, but not tonight, that'll be for another show, the 80s ones. Because, in my opinion, there are plenty of good made for television horror, a lot of creepy stuff that I would like to talk about. John, you say, "By the way, have you seen Sorcerer? I finally watched it the other day. Made one of the best films ever. Insanely good." I'm not sure if I have seen that one, John, but I'll have to definitely check it out. Hey, Darren. You say, hey, guys, can't stay long as I'm up early in the morning. We'll catch up tomorrow. Have a good one, folks. Well, thanks, Darren, for at least stopping in and saying, hey, I do appreciate it. Chris, you say, I had Sorcerer on my wish list, but since freaking past scalpers buy it up and resell them. Boo. Yeah. Okay, so I guess you guys go ahead and keep chatting away. If there's anybody that wants to come in live on the stream with me to talk about these movies, I have the link to join me live on the stream starred in the chat. If it gets lost in the chat, somebody comes in later wants to join. Um, Feel free to ask me, hey Dana, can you add that back to the chat because it got lost in the chat and I'd like to join you. And I will be so glad to add you at that point or put the link back in there. John, you say it's no joke, Friedkin's best movie. Now, John, you're not the only one that said that. I mean, the way Uncle Bill talked about it, I think he thought very highly of it too. You say, I think it and The Exorcist are the best, Cruising a close third. Oh, no, you're not derailing anything, John. Chris, you said it will probably come out in 4K or something. Hopefully, Kino picks up Sorcerer. That would be good. That would be excellent. Yeah, Blissful's right. She says, John, don't be sorry. I always learn new things from chat. Okay. So I'm only going to talk about 10 tonight. I mean, this might be another show that I might do a part two of. As I said about the Final Girls show as well. But I think I've got actual physical copies of all of these movies, except for a couple of them. But I think the ones I do have, like I've got 8 of them here, I think. Oh, goodness. I'm sorry. Oh, and I may have to go grab something to eat at some point or whatever, but I know that you guys and gals will all understand. All right. So the first one, and these aren't in any order from like least favorite to the best or anything like that. It's just basically a couple of them are Steve's. And so we're going to have a couple of the Night Stalker movies at the top of this list. So they're not necessarily alphabetical or anything like that. It was just how I pulled them off the list. Okay. So the first one is, of course, the Night Stalker. Steve still got it in plastic and stuff. I think I got him either one or both of these. These are Blu-rays, I believe, of them, starring the late great Darren McGavin. Sorry for the glare on there because of the plastic. But I don't know how many of you are fans of Kojak the Night Stalker, but I had always heard of this show. I didn't really hear as much about the movies until I got with Steve, but I had heard about the show briefly. I think my mom had talked about it. I think she had actually watched it on its original run. So I think I heard about it a little bit from her. Then when Steve and I got married, he started talking about, the Night Stalker, maybe even back when we were dating. And I was just even more intrigued by it. And I love Darren McGavin. So I want to watch anything that he's in. Um, yeah, Chris, they did. They actually did the Night Stalker and the Night Strangler, which I don't think Steve's even opened this damn thing. Look at that. He hasn't even slid it open to, from the bottom or top to like, or the side rather, or anything. I don't know what he's waiting on that one. I don't know. But anyways, um, They did do a couple of 70s TV movies. Unseen, you say, I watched it on TV. We loved it. Yeah, it's a really, really good show. And these movies are very entertaining as well. I think 1980s Betamax, you say, a real good episode of with a headless man rides a motorcycle. So the Night Stalker movie is pretty much like an intro into Darren McGavin's character, Kojak, um, who is an investigative journalist. So, oh, I forgot. This one's in 4K, I guess. I guess the restoration's in 4K. So brand new HD restoration in 4K. If you get this version from Kino Lorber, I think, yeah, Kino Lorber did both of these. So Darren McGavin plays Kojak, an investigative journalist who ends up getting, and if you watch the show, you would see it more. Because every week he would get embroiled in some kind of new supernatural type of activity, whether it was vampires or zombies or whatever. This unforgettable first entry in the Night Stalker series introduced the world to the quirky reporter with a penchant for the paranormal and became one of the top rated TV movies of all time. Investigating a series of Las Vegas murders, Carl Kojak, Darren McGavin, discovers that each victim has been bitten in the neck and drained of blood. Though Kojak's outlandish theory about the murders gets him nowhere with the police, his initiative to apprehend the killer himself gets him in hot water with a modern-day vampire. The great John Lewin Moxie, Nightmare in Bantam County, directed this. Dan Curtis, who also did Burn Offerings and a bunch of other things, production featuring Carol Lindley from the Poseidon Adventure, Simon Oakland from the Hunting Party, Ralph Meeker from Big House USA, Claude Akins from A Man Called Sledge, Charles McGraw, The Narrow Margin, Kent Smith, The Spiral Staircase, Elijah Cook Jr., I Wake Up Screaming, and Larry Linville, TV's MASH, teleplay by legendary sci-fi and horror writer Richard Matheson, who did The Incredible Shrinking Man and a ton of other stuff. So I really love these. I love the show. I love the movies. Because I think sometimes I like to settle back into that, not necessarily gothic horror, but the traditional types of vampires, zombies, just stuff like that. And that's what the Night Stalker covered in spades, in both the movies and the television show. And the television show didn't really last very long. I thought it lasted a lot longer, and Steve was like, no, it didn't last long at all. But evidently, it was very popular when it was on, which baffles my mind as to why it didn't stay on longer. Chris, you say, I have that televised terror set that Vinegar Syndrome released. Gonna have to check that one out. Yeah, I'm actually going to be talking about one of the movies from that set too here in a little while. So anyway, that is The Night Stalker starring Darren McGavin. Highly, highly, highly recommend these. Okay, so the next Night Stalker movie is The Night Strangler. And this one is directed by Dan Curtis. And Dan Curtis did a lot of stuff back in the 70s. So, supernatural phenomena, baffling murders, and offbeat humor marked the second Night Stalker offering with a great cast and suspense. So palpable it would feel like a presence right there in the room with you. Servicing in Seattle, Kojak, again, Darren McGavin, uncovers another maddening mystery. Every 21 years for the past century, a serial killer commits a spree of murders, drains his victim's blood, and then quietly disappears. But Kojak is onto this monster and is about to discover a shocking underground layer an army of rotting corpses, and the ageless madman behind it all. The great Dan Curtis produced and directed this highly rated TV movie written by legendary sci-fi and horror writer Richard Matheson, uh, who also did I Am Legend. The stellar cast includes Joanne Flug, Scream of the Wolf, Simon Oakland, Bullet, Scott Brady, He Walked by Night, Wally Cox, TV's Mr. Peepers, Margaret Hamilton, The Wizard of Oz. Everybody remembers who Margaret Hamilton played, right? The Wicked Witch. John Carradine, House of Long Shadows, and Al Lewis, TV's The Munsters. So you got a lot of cool people in this one as well. And you may be thinking, well, aren't they kind of similar? Well, no, because this one, the Night Stalker is straight ahead vampires. The Night Strangler has actually got a few other twists and turns along the way there. Chris, you said I checked Amazon for those. Yep, they're out of print. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you did bring it up because I think that's why Steve wanted them so badly when they came out, because I guess he had the forethought to realize that they probably were going to go out of print. So, yeah, probably your best bet might be eBay, but I ain't going to lie. They probably are going to shoot up the price like you wouldn't believe on that. But Kino has the series, yeah. Which wouldn't be bad to have as well. Okay, so the next one is one I just did a watch along for, the 2-part watch along, and that is Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot, I cannot say enough great things about this movie. I said a lot of them during the watch along, but this has great direction. This has great acting. This has great atmosphere. And plus, I think it's a fantastic adaptation of Stephen King's novel. There was also a short story he wrote called Jerusalem's Lot, which I'm not going to lie, I think they may have taken a little bit from that as well. But of course, the main story is going to come from the novel Salem's Lot. Chris says, hell yeah, Salem's Lot. Chris says, nope, I am not paying up the ass for anything, LOL. Well, I don't blame you. I don't blame you there, Chris. So I don't think I need to go into deep detail about what Salem's Lot is about. I mean, hell, you can look on the back there. That's obviously a vampire, right? And it even says one of the last truly great gothic vampire films. Kinder Trauma said that. And I don't disagree with them there. And this version I have is not the theatrical cut that came out later, which is a lot shorter, but this is the original miniseries. And this is what we used what I used whenever we were doing the watch along. So I said it had great actors in it. So we've got David Soul, we've got James Mason, Lance Kerwin, Bonnie Bedelia, Lou Ayres, and Paul Monash did the screenplay. This was produced by Richard Kobritz, based on a novel by Stephen King, and directed by Tobe Hooper. I don't care what anybody says. I believe Tobe Hooper directed this thing. Okay. So if you want to watch a really great vampire film, which has all the right scares and all the right places, and if you haven't seen Salem's Lot, I highly recommend it. If you weren't there for the watch along, got to enjoy and all that fun, then I say, I mean, of course, I'm not going to tell you to go out and spend your hard-earned money. If you can find a for free version of this, and you don't already own it, then oh my gosh, yeah, grab hold of that and watch it. Um, I mean, this thing has some really great scares for for a made for TV movie, essentially, right? So I can't find any flaws with this movie, and I challenge anybody to find flaws in this movie. Um, I think again it's one of those almost perfect movies. John, you say great film. The sequel is it's okay. That's right, John. That's how I feel too. Um, John, you also say I got to go into the warehouse where they filmed a lot of it at Warner Brothers Studios. I wouldn't have known that since I figured all of it was on location. That's awesome though, John, that you got to do that. So anyway, Salem's Lot. If you haven't pulled this one off of your shelf in a while and you own it, then I highly recommend it. But I'm not saying the theatrical cut is horrible, but I would say you would probably enjoy the complete miniseries a lot better. Okay. So the next one is one, oh my God, I love this movie. I love it, love it, love it. And I may just have to put it in and watch it tonight just for the heck of it. Um, I like to watch it in the fall around Halloween time, but however, I can watch it anytime. And I told you Dan Curtis is going to be in this grouping a lot. And this is Trilogy of Terror, directed by Dan Curtis, you can see right there. Um, and this one, I would highly recommend to anybody not only looking for good made for television horror, but for somebody looking for anthology horror. Um, Something I always thought was odd is I watched this interview with Karen Black on here, and it was an older interview, but she was talking about how this wasn't horror, that she didn't like horror and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I beg to differ with you, Miss Black, but she, Karen Black's no longer with us now, so God rest her soul. But she was wrong on that. That I mean, this to me is horror all the way. She tried to call it sci-fi and a bunch of other things, and I wasn't buying it. To me, it's horror. Okay, just look at the face on the front of that. You know, it says horror to me. Um, so this has three different stories, of course, hence the title Trilogy of Terror, and all three of the stories have Karen Black in them. So Karen Black is playing a different character in each one of the entries. So, legendary producer and director Dan Curtis, the Night Stalker and the Night Strangler, teams up with renowned sci-fi horror writers Richard Matheson and William F. Nolan to present three tales of horrific suspense. It even says horrific suspense on the back here. And it's highly rated and critically acclaimed made for television anthology that also showcases the tremendous acting talent of Karen Black, who also did Burn Offerings and Day of the Locust. Plus, as we know, a bunch of other stuff too. Who plays, well, actually, she plays four distinct roles because she plays twin sisters in one of the episodes. And that's all I'm going to say about that one. And, that particular episode, because I don't want to give away the twist. In Julie, an aggressive college student seduces and ultimately blackmails his seemingly shy English professor. In Millicent and Therese, two polar opposite sisters become increasingly hell bent on the undoing of one another. And in Amelia, a woman falls prey to a murderous Zuni fetish doll. The strong supporting cast includes George Gaines from Tootsie, John Carlin, Daughters of Darkness, and Gregory Harrison. Gregory Harrison is in one of these episodes of TV's Trapper John MD. Um, Hey, X-Ray, you said Karen Black had the face made for horror. I don't mean that in a bad way either. She had an offbeat hotness. Yeah, I agree, X-Ray. X-Ray, you said consider Ooga Booga the true sequel. Yeah, TJ, you're right about that. You said the first two don't get enough love. She transforms into a different person in every one of those characters, and she absolutely does. But however, I'm going to say that I do sadly have a favorite of these, and but I agree exactly with what TJ says. A lot of times, that third story is the one that people remember just because of how, I guess, outlandish it is and over the top kind of and frantic and all that. But the other two stories are very well written and again, very well acted by Karen Black and the other actors in the movie or in the episodes. John, you say she had a huge star as a legit actress and stuff like Easy Rider and Nashville, etc. But yeah, I agree, X-Ray. That face was going to pigeonhole her to horror. LOL, she has an odd face, crazy eyes. X-Ray, you say, when I was a kid, I had a huge crush on Karen Black and Invaders from Mars. I could see that. So, um, my favorite episode, although I love all of them, is of course the Zuni fetish doll one. So much, in fact, that I have been trying to get my hands on one of those Zuni fetish dolls that look just like the one in the damn movie for a long time. But if you look them up on eBay, they go for crazy amounts of money. You can't find one, I don't think, under $300, and usually not under 350. And some of them go up from there. So they're really cool though. And Steve said, well, maybe you could use your tax money and get one. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I could. Um, but again, I like all the stories. Karen Black is amazing in this, no matter what she says in that interview. She was amazing. I consider all three of them horror stories. Um, and she's just a all around an amazing actress. And I dare you to watch all of the episodes, especially the Zuni fetish doll one, all the way to the end and not be creeped out at that ending scene. And I'm not going to describe it in detail for those of you that have never seen it because I don't want to ruin it for you. Um, I mean, the cover of the Blu-ray kind of gives it away a little bit. Ooh. X-ray, you say, of course, Daner has got to be contrarian, and like the other ones, no one remembers. More historical revisionism. I'm gonna have to change my. I'm gonna have to change my profile pic or whatever. Um, TJ, you say she also added a lot to Amelia. That wasn't in the script. She came up with the ending and the whole mother backstory and dialogue. Yes, that is exactly right, TJ. Chris, you say when you overpay, you sell your soul. I don't know. That interview on this disc is very weird. It's just odd. I'm trying to think. I think it's the Three Colors Black featurette that's got that on there. And I don't think I've listened to the audio commentary, but there is audio commentary with her and writer William F. Nolan. So I need to check that out as well. But yeah, it kind of weirded me out the way she was acting. She almost I hate to say this about the woman because for one thing, she's no longer with us and two, I really liked her acting and respected her as an actress. But she almost acted like she was on something when she didn't act like she had it all together in that interview. But you guys that own this or end up buying this and you watch it, um, let me know what you think about that interview. X-ray say horror was and still is kind of looked down upon by thespians and artsy fartsy types. But then she was in, she was in something like House of a Thousand Corpses, for goodness sakes, a Rob Zombie thing. And, it's just weird. Maybe she mellowed out over the years. I have no idea. TJ, you said there was a trilogy of Terror 2 in the 90s that has one of the stories as a sequel to Amelia. Yes, it does. And I've seen it, but I'm telling you, it's not nearly as good as this original one. John, you say, yeah, true, X-Ray. Jamie Lee wanted nothing to do with it besides the new Halloween films. Yeah, which is so sad. Chris, you say, yeah, Kino has that 90s trilogy of Terror too. And Kino also put out the original as well. X-Ray, you say, whenever you listen to actors who are in a lot of horror films, you'll usually hear them saying they're not fans of the genre usually. Yeah, I've heard that, but the way Karen Black was talking, she was like trying to convince people that Trilogy of Terror was not horror. And it was just odd why would she do that? DJ, you say maybe at the time of the interview she was thinking of horror just being just slasher movies. That's possible. X-Ray says she was in Ooga Booga. So anyway, that's Trilogy of Terror. Highly recommend this one. Uh, one of the best of its kind, and I'm not lying. If you don't like this one, oh, I guess I don't know my business. Anyway, so anyway, the next one I don't actually have a physical copy of, but it's Home for the Holidays, and Sally Field was on this movie. And it's been a little while since I've seen it. I'm trying to find it on here again. Oh, I'm sorry. There are 3 of these that I don't actually have a physical copy. Sorry about that. So, Home for the Holidays is a 1972 TV movie, and stars Sally Field, Jill Hallworth, Julie Harris, and Eleanor Parker. The director is John Llewellyn Moxie. So, an ailing man summons his 4 daughters home for Christmas and asks them to kill his new wife, who he suspects is poisoning him. So, you might think just by that premise that it's maybe kind of overly silly or whatever. Um, However, I found this movie from my memory. I need to go back and watch it again. I really liked it. So there's a story behind Home for the Holidays because there are actually 2 different movies called Home for the Holidays. There is a movie, I believe in the 90s, starring Holly Hunter and Robert Downey Jr. And I think it was actually directed by Jodie Foster, which I love that one too. But that one is pretty much a comedy film about a family with issues. I will say, um, and so Holly Hunter plays the daughter of this couple who is flying home to be with her parents on Thanksgiving. And at the time, she thinks her brother, who she's really close to, played by Robert Downey Jr., is not going to be there. And she also thinks something is going on with her brother and his companion, because her brother is homosexual. Um, so I guess she thinks they're fighting or something like that, and she hadn't heard anything from them and all that. And So before she gets ready to leave, she's got a terrible cold. She's running a fever and all this stuff. She gets fired from her job or laid off or whatever you want to call it. And in the moment, she starts making out with her boss right after he tells her that you're fired, Claudia. I'm sorry, because they lost a lot of their funding where she worked, and so and then to top it off, when her daughter drops her off at the airport, the last thing her daughter tells her is, um, "I'm gonna be I'm gonna be having dinner at my boyfriend Tim's house with his parents and stuff." And then she said, "Oh, and I'm having sex with Tim." So she gets all of this stuff um, thrown in her face. But anyway, that's the comedy movie. Takes place during Thanksgiving. And at the time I asked Steve about this, I did not have a physical copy of Home for the Holidays. I had only seen it on satellite or whatever. And that has become a staple for me around Thanksgiving is to watch that. So um, I wanted to be able to watch it anytime I wanted to. And so I said, Steve, can you find me a copy of this movie? And so he said, yeah, I found you that Home for the Holidays movie. I don't know if I neglected to tell him it had Robert Downey Jr. and Holly Hunter in it and all that stuff. But he got me this movie from the 70's, and but I wasn't upset. I was like, well, it's the wrong movie, but I'm going to sit down here and watch it. And it was very good, as I remember. So, very suspenseful, creepy in parts. So, again, it's one that I would highly recommend. TJ, you say, I mean to be the devil's advocate. Nobody gets crazy when someone acts in war movies and calls war bad, but you can't act in horror and say you don't like horror, right? TJ, I'm guessing you've seen it. You said Home for the Holidays could be called a very early slasher movie template. Who released Home for the Holidays? You talking about the 70's one? I don't know if it's even I don't know if it's even out like a physical copy. Actually, Chris, let me do a little digging here. Uh, here we go. If there is one, I'd like to get my hands on it. So I see the Home for the Holidays that I was talking about, the comedy one. Well, there was a VHS at one point. If you want to pay $50 for a VHS, you can get that off of Amazon. uh, but I'm not really seeing like a DVD of it. Yeah. I mean, it may be something you can find on YouTube, possibly. Let me check something here. Just so you'd have a way to watch it. Now, I think Steve downloaded it from one of the sites. It is on YouTube, believe it or not. Let me just put that link in the chat for you guys. Let's see if it'll let me put the YouTube link in there. Yeah, poor John. John says it's on the Internet Archive. Yep, TJ does say you can find Home on the YouTube in various versions. Um, John, you say Sally Field and Burt Reynolds should have done a horror movie together in the late 70s, early 80s. That would have been awesome if they had. Uh, yeah, that would be cool. Maybe Vinegar Syndrome will do another TV tear set. That just sucks. John says, I've noticed Facebook and YouTube don't like links often. But if you can find it in any form, whether you watch it on the Internet Archive or you watch it on YouTube or you pay $50 and get that VHS, um, I think you will really like it. But I wouldn't really recommend starting out by buying a $50 VHS when we've got other options out there for free. So TJ, you say, John, their private life could have been a horror movie. Oh, well. Okay. So, John wanted to know if I was going to talk about Bad Ronald, and yes, I am. This is part of the Warner Archive collection. That's the only reason I got it on Blu ray. And it's not exceptional quality, guys and gals. Keep in mind that this is a made for television movie. And also, Warner Archive does these on a made to order basis, which means that they don't have a whole lot of these floating around. Um, so, I mean, they look pretty much like a regular DVD or Blu ray, but um, I don't know why they still do these things. For instance, um, I think they put the first 2 seasons of Perfect Strangers out. Does anybody remember that show? Out on a regular DVD, and then, like, the 2nd or 3rd or maybe 3rd season, when I got it, it was part of the Warner Archive collection. It was a lot more expensive than what I paid for the first 2 seasons. Weird. Johnny say, yeah, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is an archive Blu-ray too. You know, they have this shit on servers. They just don't want to print the disc. Yeah, yeah. Um, there've been several things like that. TJ, you say too bad because a lot of these TV horror movies were mostly shot on film, so there must have been negatives at one point. Yeah, exactly. So, in case any of you are not familiar with Bad Ronald, this is a very, very creepy movie, and it just goes from 0 to 90 and not very long. Um, so, how bad is Ronald? The Wood family finds out when they move into a house with an extra the realtor didn't know about. Teenage Ronald, who's been hiding in a secret room ever since he killed the neighbor girl. Ronald was a little weird when he entered the room. Now he's creepy, scary, crazy. And he finds the 3 pretty wood daughters very, very interesting. A fine cast includes Scott Jacoby, the little girl who lives down the lane, and Scott Jacoby, of course, plays Ronald. Kim Hunter from Planet of the Apes, she plays his mother. Dabney Coleman from Tootsie maintains a nerve-tightening atmosphere of suspense as Ronald begins terrorizing the unsuspecting family. Bad Ronald, great horror flick, it says. So, and I totally agree with that. So, a little bit of an expansion on Bad Ronald, other than the plot synopsis I just gave you. So, Ronald is one of these young teenage boys that everybody in town makes fun of, pretty much. He doesn't have any friends except his mother. And so he tries to make friends, but he's a little awkward and he's kind of shy. And um, he tries to make friends. For instance, he comes to the pool where a lot of the kids are at, and he's all ready to get in the pool, and they just start making fun of him. And so then he turns around and leaves. And then I think one of the older kids' sisters sees Ronald and starts, calling him names and calling him weird and all this stuff. And he just can't take it anymore and he shoves her. And I really don't think that the character meant to kill this girl, but when he shoves her, she falls and hits her head on a rock. He gets scared, goes home, and that's when his mother makes that secret room for him. So that when the cops come looking for him, she tells them, I don't know where he is. So she keeps him in this room and brings him food, and he's got, a bathroom back there. I mean, she's got this whole area kind of walled off. And so he has an inner bathroom there, that he can, take a shower or a bath and brush his teeth and all that stuff. And but then his mother goes in for surgery and dies, and he realizes his mother's not coming home. And so they sell the house not knowing that Ronald is there. And that's when he starts being a voyeur pretty much and watching these teenage girls. And then he falls for one of them and things go from bad to worse basically. But it's almost like a character study in a lot of ways of someone slowly losing their mind. And also he before he goes completely crazy, he stops, washing his hair, he stops keeping himself clean, he starts being careless about leaving the secret room, and the neighbor sees him through a window, um, and all that. But he's getting desperate because he needs to get food. No longer is his mother there to give him food, sandwiches and milk and whatever. Um, so he's starving essentially. So he finally has to come out of the secret room when the family is gone and get in the refrigerator. And it's at this point that the nosy neighbor lady, you always got to have a nosy neighbor lady, sees him through the window. So, well, yeah, I agree, but I think it could be called a horror thriller, because I don't know. I think there's some horrific stuff in it. It's not like he's cutting these girls up or anything like that, but that wouldn't be for TV anyway. X-Ray said, I'm going to make a movie called Bad Steve about a bald Eastern Kentuckian who collects hentai and Emmanuel books. Well, X-Ray, I mean, that would be, I guess, almost correct, except me and Steve aren't in Eastern Kentucky. CK and Uncle Bill are. But we're actually in, uh, I guess North Central Kentucky or whatever in Louisville. Um, but it it would probably be a lot funnier or maybe scarier if he was a Eastern Kentucky person. Uh, TJ, you said Kim Hunter Zero from Planet of the Apes series played Ronald's mother. Yes, she did. And she did a really good job, I think, too. Johnny said, I'm ashamed to say I still haven't watched this movie, but I got the Blu ray. Well, man, John, you got to get on it, buddy. Nah, I'm kidding. But it is a really good movie. I think you'll really enjoy it. You say you keep meaning to. Yeah, I know how it is. I mean, I'm like that with some movies that I have that, sadly, I've never even opened. Oh, goodness. Excuse me. TJ, you say, does Steve like Cannibal Holocaust? It has some of his fave stuff in it. Well, I don't think Steve's much of a fan of Cannibal Holocaust. I mean, I don't know if you could really say anybody was a fan of that movie. But, every once in a while, I like to watch it. X-Ray, you say it's on Tubi? Okay. So the next one um, is one that Steve, I don't think, had ever heard about. And I don't know how many of you guys will have heard of this one. But this is Shattered Silence, aka When Michael Calls. And it does indeed have a young Michael Douglas on it. Elizabeth Ashley is also in this. Ben Gazzara and Stacy Tuller, Marilyn Talmadge. Uh, and this is directed by a guy who I don't recognize the name, but it's Philip Leacock. But yeah, actually, Michael Douglas is in this movie. He's the one with the very nerdy looking glasses on there. Um, but so what is this movie about? In case I really like this one because this one has to do with people getting these weird phone calls. And that always creeps me out is the phone call thing. Of course, that doesn't work as well now, really, as it did way back then. But this is from 1972. So Shattered Silence is a story of a torrid romance that takes on suspenseful overtones as Michael Douglas and the irresistible Elizabeth Ashley are driven to desire in this shocking love triangle. What sets out to be a romantic love affair with Michael Douglas, using his irresistible charm to capture the heart of Elizabeth Ashley, becomes a triangle of horror and sheer terror as the son Helen believes she had lost 15 years ago, returns to terrorize her acquaintances. And you may be thinking, well, what does one have to do with the other? Trust me, you watch this film and it will all tie in together. Hey, Russell, you say, hey, everyone. Sometimes they come back film. That's one that I should talk about on a later one. I believe that one was what, 90 or so? 90, 91 maybe. So if I do a 90s one, I can definitely talk about that. But guys and gals, I am so sorry. Apologies. Yes, this is AKA When Michael Calls. That's right, TJ. John, you say, I'm interested to see your picks when you get to the 90s. I have one in particular I love. Cool. Maybe, John, when I get to those, then you could come on here with me and talk about it. So, I'm guessing TJ has seen Shattered Silence or When Michael Calls. Um, this is one of those that I believe I just blind bought. And I don't remember where I got it. You can see I just have the DVD of it. I think that might be all that's available right now. If I'm wrong on that, somebody please say something because I don't want to give out wrong information there. But right now, the DVD is the only thing that I have. But very creepy movie. If you enjoy watching these horror thriller movies that have something to do with creepy phone calls, and you're not sure if all the people are as they seem, and I'll just leave it there. But it does say on the front, it says 15 years ago, Helen's son died, or did he? Because whoever is calling is claiming to be Helen's son, Michael. So, uh, yeah. But I want to watch this one again real soon because the last time I watched it, I was just loving it. Just and the time before that, and the time before that, I think I've watched it about 3 times in the past. So, highly recommend this one. Johnny says sounds cool. Chris, you say I can see Michael Douglas being a stalker type figure in these earlier movies. He had that type of acting style. Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says, please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. TJ, you say, I watched it on YouTube during a stream of creature features hosted by Vincent and Tangela. Oh, cool. I love creature features too. Okay. So, the last one I'm going to talk about, and you guys and gals may have heard me talk about this one before. This is part of that Televised Terror Volume 1 box set. And this is Are You in the House Alone? And some people might call this more of a suspense, more of a thriller, but there are definitely horrific elements in it. And it's very, very creepy. And it has to do with some phone calls as well, which again, back in the 70s, getting a call on the phone, the way these movies are set up, is a lot scarier than nowadays when everybody has, everybody and their mother has cell phones and stuff like that. And there's caller ID and, all of these things. But back in the 70s, we didn't have all that stuff, right? So, um, what is it? Are You in the House Alone about? So Gail Osborne, played by Kathleen Beller. Kathleen Beller is excellent in this movie. Is an average high school girl whose life is turned upside down after she is attacked and savagely assaulted. Unsure of who was behind her brutalization, Gail does her best to continue her life. But when a mystery person begins leaving her threatening messages and making unsettling phone calls, this is where this is completely backwards, because she actually gets the threatening notes and the phone calls before the assault happens. So this is a little out of order here. Gail realizes that her nightmare is only just beginning and that whoever was responsible for her assault is far from through terrorizing her. Who could it be and just how far are they prepared to take their macabre plans? A classic made-for-TV thriller that oozes late 70s charm at its every twist and turn. Career TV director Walter Germans, who did some of The Twilight Zone, Murder, She Wrote, late night TV favorite, Are You in the House Alone? Develops a slow burn, edge of your seat mystery where the threat of violence lurks around every corner. Starring Kathleen Beller alongside Bliss Danner, character actor and acclaimed producer Tony Bill, and Dennis Quaid in one of his earliest roles. Vinegar Syndrome was pleased to bring Are You in the House Alone to Blu-ray, newly restored in 2K from its 35 millimeter inner positive. But the assault, in case you didn't catch that, is actually rape. It's not like somebody just beat her up and left. She gets beat up and raped. So, and I'm telling you, the things that happen right before she's raped, and you don't even have to see the rape because this is, of course, TV. They're not going to show you the rape. It's not going to be like I Spit on Your Grave or some of the other rape revenge movies, but it is still damn effective. You could truly believe that she was being attacked. And her attacker looks like he has just raped somebody. So, but something happens as far as the phone and a voice that is used and all that just makes my skin crawl. And so those are the kind of things that I think pushes this into horror territory. Okay. It is still a thriller, it's still suspenseful, all of that, but there are some horrific elements thrown in there as well. Russell, you don't like made for telly horror movies? Oh, well, you should give some more of them a try, Russell. You might like them. Give yourself some time, and then maybe try one or two of them that I mentioned. Some of them are really really good. John, you say I keep wanting to find Foster's Release. It's a short film from 1971 starring Dan O'Bannon as the blueprint for the babysitter and the phone call stuff. Ah, I'd like to find that one too. That sounds very interesting. Blissel says, Russell, I'm terrified of the Kardashians. True horror right there. Uh, so, guys and gals, I forgot a couple more. I don't. I guess I skipped them because I didn't have an actual physical copy. I'm going to talk about those before I get off of here for the night. Um, John, you say it was a part of a short film set Carpenter worked on as well. It's supposedly where a lot of the slasher films got an idea from post Psycho, but it's unfindable. Ah, I agree, Chris. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow is a great TV horror film. I definitely want to cover that one at some point as well. Rosie, you say, seen a few. I did like, seen a few, but you didn't like many. Okay, gotcha. So the last two I wanted to talk about, one is A Taste of Evil, which Steve had on. I think Steve had it on the hard drive somewhere. And one night, a few years back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was looking for something to watch, and I didn't really care, just something good. And the A Taste of Evil sounded interesting, because I read up on it. It's not a very long movie. It's only 73 minutes. It was made in 1971. So, on her way home from a stay at a mental institution after a traumatic rape, a woman realizes that someone is deliberately trying to drive her insane. And this is another movie that has a lot of creepy scenes in it, a lot of dark, brooding atmosphere. Um, the only bad thing was, I guess I've seen so many of these in the past, um, is is the fact that I figured out who was trying to drive her crazy before the movie was over. But this one again is directed by John Llewellyn Moxie. It stars Barbara Stanwyck, Barbara Parkins, Roddy McDowall, and William Wyndham. Again, I would highly recommend this one if you've never seen it. It may be one that you can find on YouTube. Yes, it is. It is definitely on YouTube. I will see if I can put the link in here for anybody that's interested in watching that. Uh, Chris, I think I've seen Strays, but it's been a really long time. You say it's a pretty good animal attack TV film as well. Russell, you say love the telly horror movie It with Tim Curry. I did too. I did too. So the last one I want to talk about is Duel, which I had to go back and ask Steve if that was actually a TV movie. He said, "Well, yeah, it was," and then they put it out in the theaters. Um, but this one is like the quintessential television horror movie. This one came out in 1971, directed by Steven Spielberg, stars Dennis Weaver, Jacqueline Scott, Eddie Firestone, and Lou Frizzle. So a business commuter is pursued and terrorized by the malevolent driver of a massive tractor trailer. So I think this is the type of movie that kind of paved the ground for things like Joyride, um, and perhaps even to some extent road games, um, that all came later. But Duel, some people might find Duel boring or a little, but I think of it as more like a slow burn. Um, it takes a little bit to get started, but the whole premise of not being able to see the person that's driving this truck that is terrorizing you, no matter where you go, you cannot get away from this person and their truck. And you start to wonder, is this the devil in this truck? I mean, what is this person's beef with Dennis Weaver's character? What could he have possibly done to deserve this? Or is this person just batshit crazy and is just looking for the first person they see on the road to terrorize and possibly kill? Um, but yeah, Duel is chock full of atmosphere. Some people might liken Jaws, which came a little bit later, to Duel, only with a shark in the water. I think I've even heard people say that before. Um, yeah, it's, exactly, John. You say I just rewatched Duel recently. I love his inner whisper monologue. Um, Hey, Coco, you say Duel was another I saw around the age of 4 or 5. Freaked me out. I imagine at 4 or 5, it probably did. Uh, Coco, you say, I don't think The Hearse is a made for TV movie, but it sure feels like it. One of the reasons I really like it. Yeah, I love The Hearse. I think I actually have a DVD of that one. But no, I don't think that one's a made for TV one. Um, John, you say he should have gotten that damn radiator hose fixed. That's right. Duel is another one that I definitely want to go back and watch, and I don't know why I don't think I own a copy of it. And if I do own a copy of it, it's probably only DVD. But anyway, guys and gals, we have officially reached the end of made for TV horror from the 1970s. I talked about 10 of my favorites. I would definitely like to revisit this at a later time. I'm going to try to watch. I've got a list off of IMDb of the top 50 1970s made for TV films, and a lot of them sound intriguing that I have not yet watched. So when I get around to watching those, I would definitely like to do a part two of this. Um, in addition to that, I would like to do one for the 80s and the 90s, since there really seemed to be some interest in me talking about 1990s made for television movies as well. Hey, Rooster, you say it was played on regular TV on the weekend. Dennis Weaver was great, and his Dodge Dart. That's right. Um, so, um, I can maybe stay on here a couple more minutes, but as I always say, I don't plan for these Seductive Poison Resurgence podcast streams to be very long. I want to keep them right about an hour or a little bit over an hour, but I don't plan on them being 2 and 3 hour jobbies. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this. I hope you were able to possibly discover some newer movies that you might like to, or I mean, new movies to you. Um, that you might like to watch. By the way, this is what that televised terror looks like. The box, anyway. It has the Calendar Girl Murders and the Child in the Night as well in that box set. Well, thank you, Chris. You say great stream, Dana, as always. And thank you, Rooster, for hitting the thumbs up. Chris, you say you love that box set. Yeah, I do too. And I've seen Argue in the House Alone many times, but I want to watch the other two movies as well. TJ says, by the way, Dana, you have extra time to really go over those Friday hips. I do. But guys and gals, and I told TJ this, and I wasn't lying. I was wiped out yesterday evening. And I was like, and I actually didn't clock out until between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. There is no way I could have done a stream after that, even though I so much wanted to. This has been probably the worst week work wise that I've had since I started. I don't even think I had a week this bad ever since I started with Smile Doctors. I don't know what in the hell's going on work wise. I have no idea. It's like the craziest stuff is going on. Blissful, you say you got new movies for your list? That is cool. Coco, you say when the rooster shows up, Alice in Chains pops into my head. It's a whole concert over here now. Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says great live, Dana. Thank you, Unseen. Unseen agrees. Yeah, TJ, unfortunately, as much as I like to do these streams and all that, I'm going to try to have another pop-up type of deal tomorrow because I shouldn't have to work too awfully late because I've been putting in some overtime. So, excuse me, I should be able to clock out earlier tomorrow. So, and it's payday too. So, it's all good all the way around. So, if I can get a couple of those things knocked out tomorrow that I didn't get all the way finished work wise tomorrow, then I'll be in good shape, I think. But with all that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight for the second official episode of Seductive Poison, the Resurgence. Hopefully, I'll be able to be back next Thursday with another episode. Monday should be a return to Camp Cronenberg. Tuesday, I don't know. I'll try to do something. I would have had a Camp Cronenberg this past Monday. However, unfortunately, William Freakin passed away. And so I felt compelled to do a tribute stream, as I saw a lot of other people doing, including Dead Pit. Yes, Coco has the right idea. Have a good night, all. Be nice to people. You're welcome, Rooster, and thank you for coming by. TJ says, good night, kids. I like that he calls us all kids. Well, you're welcome, Russell. Yeah, I hope to see you next time. And also, don't forget, Saturday and Sunday, we've got Terror on Tour watch along on Saturday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And Almost Famous on Sunday, again starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You're very welcome, Unseen. And good night, Blissful. Good night, everybody. And on that note, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night. And I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now. And I will see you next time.